Hi, I'm Dr. Jacob Larson. This is Read, Write, and Cite, a channel where I teach you how to read, write, and cite for your college classes. In this video, we're going to talk about how to start a paper. Specifically, the example I'm going to use is how to start a paper where we're writing about The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. So, let's go to the computer. Alright, if we look at our sample sentence, this sounds like the start of a lot of papers, right? Because there's kind of a basic structure, and you can use this for just about any paper that is about directly responding to something. This could be a story, a poem, a play. It could be a news article or I don't know, an academic article. If you're writing about a specific work of something, a movie, this is a good structure to start with. So let's go through it. In our example, it says, in Edgar Allan Poe's story, The Telltale Heart, he uses a first-person point of view to put the reader inside the mind of a madman. Now, the structure is pretty straightforward. We identify what it is we're talking about and who wrote it. We give the title, and then we're going to give some sort of summary about it, right? We're introducing the idea that we want the reader to know so that as we continue to explain for the rest of the paper, they're already set up for what comes next. This is also going to look a lot like a thesis, though you could be more specific later on. But yeah, this right here could work as well. So let's talk about opening sentences, theses, how to set up details and things like that. Because many students, I have my students ask me over and over and over again. It's like, okay, I understand the assignment. Now, how do I start? And so I'll tell them, well, you should outline. You should, figure out what your main point is. I tell my students that if you don't know what your thesis is, then you're not ready to write yet. And then they'll be like, okay, all right, okay. What's a thesis? It's like, okay, so I'll teach them again because at this point I would have already told them. But a thesis is that main point, that claim that your paper is about. Your introduction, in theory, is going to give all the details to lead your reader into the place so that they're ready to hear your thesis. And then the rest of the paper is going to be explaining, justifying, maybe even proving that thesis. The entire paper hinges on it. So it's important that you know the point that you're trying to make. But sometimes we just need to get started. So this is a good structure for that. Introduce what it is you're going to write about. Give a title. This is some good attribution. And then just kind of summarize the main idea. This doesn't have to be debatable yet, but it's not a bad idea. You could argue whether or not he uses first-person point of view to put the reader inside the mind of a madman. But, the paper would also back that up as well. Okay, so let's talk about what this sentence tells the reader and why we want to give them this sort of information. From the very beginning, the expectations are very clear what the paper is going to be about. We know we're going to talk about The Telltale Heart by who? Edgar Allan Poe. And we know probably the main idea that the paper is going to be about. That we're going to talk about first-person point of view in the paper, and we're going to talk about how that puts the reader inside the mind of a madman, which is the main character in the story. So we have a pretty good idea that what comes next is going to add more detail to this topic. This is why this is good for the reader. This is also good for you as the writer, because from the very beginning you have a good idea for what comes next. Now, maybe you're not ready to kind of put a claim in that opening sentence. That's fine. This is something that could show up later in your thesis, probably at the end of that first paragraph. But the structure is still going to be the same. You introduce you're giving attribution, what you're going to talk about, and then you give a bit of a summary. This summary doesn't have to be debatable. It doesn't need to have a claim in it, but it can lead into a few more details so that by the end of this opening paragraph, you're ready to give that thesis. Does that make sense? Anyway, that's the basic concept. I think this students sometimes they just need to get started. They just need some momentum. So use this structure. You're gonna introduce the name of who wrote whatever it is you're talking about, what kind of source it is. Is it a story? Is it an article? Is it an essay? Whatever. You're gonna give the title. If it's a book and you're using MLA, it's going to be italicized, but if it's part of a larger work like a story inside of a collection, that's going to be in quotation marks, and then you give some sort of summary. So that's it. I hope this was helpful. I'm Dr. Jacob Larson. This has been Read, Write, and Cite. If you want to see more videos like this, you can check out, there's over 100 videos now on this channel. If you go to my website, readwritecite.com, it also has them categorized by title and articles that go with some of them. So that's a good resource as well. So if you check that out, I really appreciate it, and hopefully it'll help you. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.